Why speculate as to what might be going on when you can just ask? So that's exactly what I did. Viewers of the channel will know that I very recently made a video about the controversy going on, the drama going on with the CEO of a indie VTuber agency denying people their pay for 5 months. And this is something that's very important to me and my community because I don't like the idea of a corporation screwing over VTubers. I'm a VTuber, I don't like corporations, this is very personal for me. So rather than continuing to speculate, which is what I basically did in the previous video, I actually DM'd Pudi, the person who made that original tweet. And to my surprise and to my delight, they actually responded to questioning. And you know what? I might actually start doing this in the future. If people are just willing to answer my questions, I don't have to speculate at all. This is genius. Why doesn't everyone do this? NewsTubers, if you're watching this, ask people questions. Sometimes they answer. So I'd asked her a series of questions about the situation, and number one, she clarified that even though it says in her bio that she's a live 2D rigger and she streams on Twitch and all this stuff, her actual role for this company is actually a talent manager. And none of the other accounts in her bio are related to the company, as she wanted to make an active effort to separate herself from the company. In this case, she doesn't want to break her non-disclosure agreement. So that I totally understand. That's totally fine. No issues there. Despite the fact that myself and others have pointed out that she very likely is not bound by that non-disclosure agreement, she doesn't want to do anything without having a lawyer present, which I totally respect. That's the smart thing to do. But she also points out later that even though she wants, ideally, to take legal action, the cost of having to take legal action is likely going to be more than the wages that they haven't received. So even though morally that's what everyone would want them to do, monetarily it doesn't make financial sense to do that. So sad news to hear that the person doing this isn't going to be held legally accountable for their douchey actions. I 100% understand and support her decision to more than likely not pursue this. And then she also gave me a little bit more context as to who was being impacted by the delayed pay. And she said everyone, the staff, the talents, everybody, no one has gotten their money on time. And that even includes external artists that they have commissioned, which is wild. You might not think that's a big deal, but in my opinion, that's huge. I have a massive soft spot for artists. I love artists, especially artists working for the VTuber community. So hearing that even they're getting screwed over by this deal, absolute insanity. I am more furious than I was at the start. I'm so personally angry about the situation and the fact that the CEO would do this to not just their own employees, but third-party artists. Everyone's getting screwed. And this part is interesting, and this part I wasn't expecting. So when I first heard the news that people weren't getting paid, I kind of assumed that the entire company was collapsing. I thought this was company apocalypse event. But interestingly enough, the company isn't actually dissolving. The CEO is still actively managing things, and very likely, if the CEO does decide to reverse course and pay people, and just continue on without the staff members that he feels aren't pulling their own weight and just aren't doing enough, there's a possibility. Now, again, I'm speculating here, but based on what they're telling me, if the company is not dissolving, the CEO isn't, self-terminating the country in an absolute hissy fit, it could bounce back, which is interesting. But she does point out very correctly that once the name has been exposed, there's no way they could keep their business. And then I gave her a very open-ended question. It's like, is there anything that you want people to know about the situation that you just didn't have time to talk about, or you just really want to reinforce? And actually, to my surprise, that her statement here actually conflicts with the conclusion of my last video. In my last video, I specifically stated that I hate companies. The conclusion of my video was don't trust indie VTuber agencies. That was what I ended on. So it's interesting that she actually counters that in her point and saying that startup companies can potentially be great. and every agency has their pros and cons. But it's not because this company was a fuck up that we can classify all of them like this. It's unfortunate that we had an incompetent CEO and that there's obvious favoritism, which is something she mentioned in her original tweet too, that the CEO is only communicating with one of their talents. So obvious favoritism going on behind the scenes. But she doesn't want people to view agencies too negatively. Just be cautious and opt out when they can. And you know what? I'm going to let you, the viewer, make your own decision rather than trying to force my opinion on you like I did in the last video. I'm very biased, but the person who is at the very epicenter of what is effectively a corporate drama is saying don't mistrust all other similar agencies just because of one bad apple. You know what? I will let you make your own decisions given the facts of the case and given other examples in recent history with VTuber startups. Make your own decisions. Just be cautious and be sure to have the ability to opt out when you can. So I hope that shed some light on the situation that I mentioned in the previous video. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll say this one more time. I hope any other news tubers that are watching reach out to people and ask people and invite them to interviews, because sometimes they respond, and I think it's so much more valuable to hear directly from the source rather than speculate. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Bye, guys!